Good morning, everybody. As you all are coming in, hope everybody's having a great day and week. Hope everybody's having a great day and week so far. I got 7 different streams going here, so let me make sure everybody is where they need to be. Make sure everybody can see me and hear me as they're supposed to. You know, when these streams start, you gotta put certain things in place on some of them. Some of them are plug and play. Some of them are not. Some of them are plug, adjust, and play. So here we go. Good morning, everybody over there on YouTube. Shout out to YouTube. I've been on YouTube for literally 20 years. Shout out to Rumble, X. Shout out to Facebook, LinkedIn. Good morning. Instagram, good morning. And TikTok, good morning. So what we're talking about here today, the topic is toxic masculinity. Is this even a thing? How are people defining and describing it? And if it isn't a thing, why is it not a thing? And I'll tell you right up front, as the title here today is Debunking Toxic Masculinity. I'm going to tell you why the way this has been framed in today's polite society is complete nonsense. It is complete bullshit. I'm going to explain to you how it's being framed, how it's being described, what are the things that people are saying about what they're calling toxic masculinity. I'm not going to do the air quotes every time that I say it, but I do mean it in air quotes when I say toxic masculinity. I'm going to tell you why it's some nonsense, and I'm going to break down the definitions and the examples that are given to explain what toxic masculinity supposedly is. And I'm going to tell you why it is based in a whole bunch of nothingness. That's what I'm going to explain to you all here today. So I'm going to start by telling you that where I got these points from, because I was actually Googling the concept toxic masculinity. I wanted to get a definition of the term and all of that stuff. So I'm going to read the definition. I'm going to tell you where I got this from. I'm going to even tell you the person who wrote this article, because I've heard of this person. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. And then we're going to get in deeper into this topic with 9 specific descriptions of what it means to be toxic masculine. There are actual descriptions that they give. They have terms, then they explain what they mean. And then I'm going to tell you why these are all based in complete nothingness. Everybody got it? Good. So first of all, let's get a definition. This comes from a website called Very Well Mind. And I've used this website a few times whenever I was looking up material for anything mindset based. They tend to talk about mindset and mental health a lot. More of a softer version, is a more feminine way of looking at things, but there is value to that. There's value to femininity, not all the time, but sometimes. So Very Well Mind says the following, and this is a quote. Toxic masculinity refers to a collection of offensive, harmful beliefs, tendencies, and behaviors rooted in traditional male roles, but taken to an extreme. This dangerous idea of quote unquote manliness perpetuates domination, homophobia, and aggression, and can be harmful to the mental health of all genders. It also can have serious social consequences, which is how it became known as toxic masculinity. And then they highlight multiple aspects of what they call toxic masculinity, which is what we're going to break down here today. Now, first of all, let me tell you, actually, let me introduce myself first, then we're going to get a little bit more into where this comes from. My name is Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete, author of 35 books on 4 TEDx talks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. What we do here is we extract the attributes, skills, and tools to help athletes reach the top of the sports world. We translate those over directly to the business and the professional world when it comes to high-level performance, consistency of performance, and the production of results. The same thing you need in sports. I teach people how to do this in business, whether you're in sales, entrepreneurship, you're transitioning, any area in between, especially when it comes to mindset as the foundation. That's what we do over here at Work on Your Game. So this article right here, this is written by, this is on the website called Very Well Mind. It's written by this woman named Amy Morin. And I've heard of Amy. I've heard her on a few interviews. I believe she has a couple of TED Talks, and she has at least one TED Talk. She might have several. And she had a very popular TED Talk. And I actually liked Amy in the times that I've heard her speak. I have not stopped liking her, but I'm not a consistent consumer of her material, but I've heard her on a few interviews and actually liked her approach. And Amy is a psychotherapist and a best-selling author, and she has some popular books, and she has, as I just told you, a popular TED Talks, and she's the one who came up with these terms about toxic masculinity. I'm bringing that up to help you understand this. Amy Morin, y'all can tell by me reading that, I think most of you can surmise, Amy Morin is a female. And this is a female who was, I guess, contracted or asked by Very Well Mind to write an article about quote unquote toxic masculinity. Can anybody note the problem with this just from the beginning? The problem with this from the very beginning is you have a woman who is going to write an article and preach to men and women about how a man being a man is doing it the wrong way. So she's basically telling men, all right, you're a man, I'm a woman, but I'm going to tell you what are the wrong ways of being a man. All right, that makes no sense from the very beginning. If you're going to get an article about toxic masculinity, at least get a fucking man to write it. So they got a woman to write an article about toxic masculinity. So we already know this is going in the wrong direction. But I'm going to go through all the points that were listed in this article. And I'm giving you that frame to help you understand who wrote this, where these things came from. So you understand when you hear something that sounds ridiculous, you have more context as to why it is as ridiculous as it is. Everybody got that? Number one, and each one of these I'm going to read out to you are things that the author is saying. These are, symptoms of toxic masculinity. So any man being this means they're being toxic. And then I'm going to tell you their explanation of it. And then I'm going to tell you why it's complete garbage. The first one is toughness. Yes, toughness. That any man who thinks that he needs to be tough, he is this is toxic masculinity. A man believing that he should be tough. Or if you're a man and you have kids, let's say you have a young boy and you're teaching your boy to be tough, then you are preaching toxic masculinity. Or if you're a woman and you're saying to your son, hey, you need to be tough, you are preaching toxic masculinity according to this article. And it says toxic masculinity has the idea that men should be physically strong, emotionally callous, and behaviorally aggressive. So what I want you to notice about everything I'm going to lay out here is that Amy Morin is a pretty smart woman. All right, this woman's not dumb. Now, she is completely misguided in having written this nonsense, but she's not stupid. Those are two different things. I can think someone is really smart, but still think your conclusions are complete bullshit. And her conclusions are bullshit, even though she's a very intelligent woman. And what you need to understand when you deal with people who are really smart, but they have misguided beliefs and ideas, is that they're really, really good at using words to influence and persuade, because they use certain language for a certain reason that is designed to box you in. So I don't know if y'all have been paying attention, and I'll be talking about this in a future live stream. I might do it tomorrow, but a future live stream I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about, because sometimes people ask me, Dre, would you ever think of doing something like going into politics? And I have often said, no, I would never go into politics. And that's still the belief. That's still the stance. I will never go into politics. One of the reasons is in politics, these people, usually politicians, usually pretty smart. They do a whole lot of public speaking. So they get really, really good at using certain language to influence and persuade, even when they're lying to you, even when they are misguiding. So if y'all been paying attention to these confirmation hearings in DC this week, so there was, and these are the people that Donald Trump chose for his cabinet and certain appointments, and the high big name people are getting called up to Washington, DC to appear in front of these committees, these Senate committees, and the committees will be half Democrat, half Republican. And we know Donald Trump's on the Republican side. So what happens is the Democrats get to ask this person a question, and the Republicans get to ask the question. And the Republicans are generally pretty nice and kind-handed. And then the Democrats will go in there and try to grill the person and try to get slam dunks that get clipped out and used on social media. So if y'all been watching on social media, you've probably seen some of these clips with Pete Hegseth, which was 2 days ago, and with Pam Bondi, which was yesterday. And as more people come up, Kash Patel still has to show up. Gabbard has to show up. So RFK. So this is going to be, it'll be interesting as these things go on. But anyway, I don't know if all of them appear, but I know those two have appeared. The thing is, they get really good at using certain language that boxes you in. It's called loaded language. Loaded language is when you frame something in such a way that no matter how someone responds to it, they look at it. So it's like if you say to a man, hey, are you still cheating on your wife? All right, that's loaded language, because no matter how I respond to it, I look guilty. If I say, no, I'm not cheating on my wife, I never cheated on my wife, I'm getting defensive because you just set me up with that question. And if I ignore the question, then the question still lingers in the air. Like, damn, wait, was this guy cheating on his wife? So loaded language, this is what politicians do. They're really, really good at it. So this is one of the reasons why I wouldn't get into politics, because you have to do it. If you're going to be a politician, you have to do it. They're going to do it to you, and you got to do it to them. And knowing that that's what they're doing, I couldn't do that, because it's a very dishonest way of communicating. And I prefer to keep it real and stay in the public sector rather than the private sector, such as the government. I'm saying all that to say this. When Amy Morin starts her Morin, whatever her name is, let's just say very well mine, starts this conversation about toxic masculinity by saying a man believing that he should be physically strong. First of all, what the hell is she talking about? Men are already naturally, without even trying, physically stronger than women. So we don't even need to spend any time on that point. But she says emotionally callous. This is tricky language. This is loaded language. That's what this is. This is loaded language. Now, emotionally callous, the word callous just means unfeeling, all right, not feeling anything. You just have no touch. So being emotionally callous can be a negative thing, but that's not the way that this should be framed. I'm going to reframe this. And I wouldn't even, if I was having a conversation with Amy, I would call this out. I would say, this is loaded language, and you're using this as a way to purposely manipulate a man's thinking and to think that he's bad if he has been told in any way, hey, control your emotions and control your feelings. One of the things that I told people in my audience years ago, males and females, especially when you're an entrepreneur, is that you are in the emotional management business. We are all in the emotional management business, especially men. And especially when you're a person in charge of something, you have to control your emotions, because you cannot allow your emotions to control you and be a leader at the same time. That's impossible. Your emotions got to be in check when everybody else's emotions are running wild. That's what makes you a leader, is that everybody else is out of control, anxious, worried, scared, afraid, and they look at you and they see that you're steady and calm. They can calm down. You regulate them. If you're a parent and your kid is getting out of control and having a temper tantrum and crying and flailing around on the floor in the middle of the mall, are you going to do the same thing? No, you had to be relaxed. And when the kid sees you relaxing, even though they're acting out, they will slowly relax. So you are helping them to regulate their emotions, because your emotions are already regulated. I believe this is called co-regulation. When you're a person in charge, that's what you're supposed to do. And a man was designed to be in charge. That's in the Bible, that the man was put in charge. And when the man didn't do his job, that's when we got trouble. All right. If you read the story of the Garden of Eden, you understand that. So is a man supposed to be emotionally callous? No, because that's an extreme. And when you talk about the way, again, as I told you, this is loaded language. This is what we call the absurd absolute. The absurd absolute is when you take some concept and you stretch it out to the furthest possible end that it can go, and then you argue against it. So if I say a man should learn to channel and control his emotions, and then a woman comes along and says, oh, so what are you saying, Dre? A man is supposed to be emotionally callous? That's toxic. No, I'm not saying be callous. What I'm saying, because there's a big gap between controlling your emotions and having none at all. You have emotions. All human beings have emotions. What we need to do is learn to channel and control them, and we can transmute the energy from an emotion, because all emotions have energy in them. Take the energy from an emotion and channel it into something that will actually help us be productive. That's the job of any man. And since we're talking about toxic masculinity, I'm going to refer mostly to men here today. I'm going to refer to women only as they relate to men, and also as it was a woman who wrote this article, which is one of the reasons why a whole lot of what being said in here is bullshit. She doesn't know what she's talking about because she's not a man. So emotionally callous is not what you need to be, but there may be times you need to be. There may be times you do need to put your feelings aside and do your damn job. Any women who are listening to this, let me ask you a question. Would you appreciate a man who has that ability? Yes or no? Just put it in the comments. Yes or no? If you're a woman listening to this, would you appreciate if there is a man in your life who has the ability to put his emotions aside and be callous and get done what needs to get done? I would think, in my experience, I think most women appreciate that in a man. And even men appreciate it in other men. If we're working together, we're on the same team. I understand you're having a rough day. I understand it's cold outside. I understand your knee hurts. You got a headache. But hey, there's a job you need to get done, sir. Do your damn work. Do your job. We appreciate that in men. Now, we don't want to need to put that on women all the time. And the way you keep women from having to deal with that burden is by a man doing his job. Because if the man can't regulate his emotions, well, what's the woman supposed to do? And I think most women, maybe some of you wouldn't admit it, but if you have a man in your life who can't regulate his emotions any better than you can regulate yours, are you really dealing with a man, or are you dealing with a woman? Are you dealing with a female in a man's body? But anyway, and behaviorally aggressive was the third thing she said about toughness. Behaviorally aggressive. Again, this is loaded language. Aggression is not a negative thing. Let's be clear about that. First of all, aggression is not a negative thing. Aggression comes with testosterone. All men and women have testosterone. Men naturally have, more of it because we have testicles. They produce testosterone. Testosterone leads to aggression. And again, same thing that I just said. When aggression is an emotion, it's an energy. And being aggressive does not necessarily mean you're outside, bumping into people and starting fist fights. That's not what it means. Aggression means you are going after what you want in a direct and clear way. That's what aggression means. If you look at the definition of the word, I'm paraphrasing, that's the definition of it. So you can be aggressive in following up with your clients, that your prospect that you're trying to turn into customers. You can be aggressive in trying to close a business deal. You can be aggressive in letting this girl know that you want to date her or whatever the situation is. Aggression does not necessarily mean that you are out attacking people and being a jerk for no reason. And again, men having testosterone, aggression is part of our natural behavior pattern is for a man to be aggressive. You can be verbally aggressive by just letting people know where you stand, just the way that you communicate. That can be an argument. It could just be the way you carry yourself. You can carry yourself in a certain way. You can see somebody walking through a store and tell that they have a little bit of aggression in them. There's nothing wrong with that. So this whole framing that she's putting here that this makes you toxic is complete bullshit. And I wonder with Miss Amy, who wrote this article, what kind of man she has in her life, if she considers this to be toxic, or if she's just doing this performatively because they're paying her to do it. So she might have a man who actually fits these descriptions, but to write this article and to get her check, she went and wrote this nonsense. I don't know. Let's move on to point number 2. We're talking today. I'm talking about the concept of toxic masculinity for those who came in late. That's the topic here today. And I'm debunking these 9 alleged descriptions of what it means to be toxically masculine. The second one is anti-femininity. Anti-femininity is toxic masculine. So it says, according to her, to be toxic means you believe that men should reject traditionally feminine behaviors such as showing emotion and accepting help. Again, loaded language. This woman is an expert at loaded language because this is what they do. They mentally manipulate you. And if you can't catch the loaded language, then you end up engaging on her terrain and she's better at it than you. And she will talk circles around you. And before you know it, you're agreeing to some bullshit. Like a girl can become a boy and a boy can become a girl. These are the type of people that end up selling you this bullshit. It's not because people aren't smart. Is it because these people are just smarter than you and they're better at the language games than you are? And when you catch them in their bullshit, you can call it out. And when I call people out on their bullshit like this, I usually get blocked on social media. So when I tell you I get blocked a lot, it's by people like her because I call out their nonsense. And I'm trying to help you all out by showing you so that they don't do it to you. So anyway, anti-femininity. So just the fact they're even calling it that, we already know the nonsense is coming. So they say traditionally feminine behaviors such as showing emotion and accepting help. So we already talked about emotion. Emotion is going to come up a lot in this list. All right, so get used to that word because it's going to keep coming up. Men do have emotions the same way that women have emotions. And as a matter of fact, I will go as far as to say men feel emotions even more strongly than a woman does in certain ways. Why? Because men have the physicality to act out on their emotions in a way that a woman does not. Man has the ability to turn his emotions into physical actions at levels that a woman would never understand. So men do feel emotions. Our job is not necessarily to show our emotion. Our job is to channel and control our emotions. Again, don't let the emotions control you. You control it. And we channel our emotions into productive and positive behaviors. So I could feel angry and I could take the energy of my anger and go to the gym and get a good workout in and do that consistently. Every time I feel angry or something that reminds me of it, take that to the gym every day. And then I'll be big, physically strong, and I can lift the boxes and I can move the couch so my wife can sweep underneath. All right. So there is a positive outcome to this as long as you learn how to channel your emotions. That's a man's responsibility. And this other thing of accepting help. This is seriously loaded language. First of all, there's nothing wrong with having help. Now, as an entrepreneur, there are times where I have help. I have somebody who, if you're on YouTube, you see the thumbnail for this video. I didn't design that thumbnail. I have help who does that. And that person came to me. They was unsolicited. They reached out to my assistant. My assistant told me about it. We had a conversation that made thumbnails for me. So accepting help is not necessarily a negative thing. And again, the way that they're framing this is, again, it's blackmail. This is mental and emotional blackmail is what this woman is doing in writing this, because the way it's framed, and I'm extrapolating from this, let's say a man is working on a challenging problem. Something is just not working for him. And every man who's listening to this has been through that. Some of you are dealing with it right now. There's a challenging problem you're trying to deal with. You have not yet solved it. And because you're a man, you are working on it and trying to figure it out. And there will be times in life as men that we are trying to figure something out and we have not yet figured it out. That does not mean that we are toxic by continuing to work on it. It's a ridiculous premise. Again, this is why I said this is heavily loaded language. It's a ridiculous premise to say that a man is dealing with a challenge. Let's say you've been dealing with a challenge for 3 months and you haven't yet solved it. And then somebody looks at you and says, well, you're still working on it. Why don't you just go accept some help from somebody else? That means you're being a toxic masculine man. No, it means I'm trying to do my duty and fulfill my responsibility by solving the problem. Sometimes the problem is not solved so easily, is not solved so immediately, and it doesn't make me wrong to keep wanting to work on it. Again, ladies who are listening to this, would you prefer a man who will at least try to solve his own problems and work hard on it until he solves it? Or you want a man who will just throw his hands up and go and say, well, somebody's got to come help me, or come to you, God forbid, and say, hey, can you help me with this problem? I'm not saying it's a negative thing necessarily when it gets to a certain point, but I would guess that most of the women listening to this, give me a yes or no in the comments. Would you prefer a man who at least works as hard as he can and what's the word I'm looking for? It uses up all the possible resources available before he goes to someone else and says, hey, I can't solve this problem. Can somebody else help me solve the problem? Now, of course, I'm just asking for a yes or no on that. But of course, there are caveats to this. It depends on what type of problem we're talking. All right, different types of problems require different levels of discretion when it comes to this. For example, and I see a lot of yeses in here. Yes, of course, can't for fun. Exactly. That's what I mean. There are caveats to this. Let's say, for example, something goes wrong with my car. I go to start the car isn't running. Now, I am not the type of person who's going to go lift up the hood and start tinkering with stuff under the hood. I'm just not that type of guy. So I would immediately call somebody to come fix the car because that's not my area of expertise. However, if there's a problem with my email servers and my emails are not going out, I actually know how to address that problem. I'm going to go work on it and I'm going to fix it myself. So there are different problems in which I'm going to immediately go get some help or accept help. And there are other problems where I'm not getting help at all because I know exactly what I'm doing. But to even frame this, that it's some type of feminine behavior to accept help or want help. And then if you won't get the help and you just try to work on it yourself, you're somehow being toxic, is, again, loaded language, a manipulative framing written by a woman about how the wrong ways to be a man. Again, completely nonsense. Moving on. Point number 3. We're talking here today about toxic masculinity, and I'm debunking these concepts that this woman, they got a woman to write an article about toxic masculinity, which should tell you enough. Number 3 is power. Power. If you're a toxic masculine man, you are seeking power. And it says, description, men should work toward attaining power and status, both socially and financially, and thus gain the respect of others. This is, so far, we got 9 points here. I'm only on point number 3. So far, this is the most ridiculous one in the whole list. That you are a toxic man if you are trying to obtain power. Again, ladies, let me ask a question. How many of you, let me say it this way. Would you prefer a man who is looking for power, or would you prefer a man who's not? Just give me a yes or a no. You want a man who's looking for power? Yes. If you want a man who's not looking for power, give me a no. What type of man do you like? What type of man do you want to be around? You want to be around a man who is seeking power or a man who is not seeking power? I personally, as a heterosexual man, meaning I'm attracted to women, if I'm going to deal with other men, I want to deal with other men who have power or are trying to get it. I want to deal with a man who doesn't want power or doesn't have any, because why the hell am I talking to him? First of all, the law of association, you become the average of the people you spend time with. You're spending time with a person with no power while you're on your way to being one. And if I'm dealing with other men, I want to deal with other men who have power and status. Why? Because first of all, they will be useful to me and I can be useful to them. And a person with power, a man with power and status, is only going to deal with me if he sees me as being a man of power and status. And together we can get more done than either of us can get done individually. So this whole concept of they're saying is toxic if a man thinks he should work toward obtaining power and status, both socially and financially. So what exactly does that mean? Some of you may remember a gentleman by the name of Mr. Kevin Samuels. He passed away about 2.5 years ago. And he would often talk about this concept of the high value man. And he had a whole list of things that it took. Of course, there was a financial aspect to it. And one of the things that he would always say when he described the high value man, he would say, you must be valuable to the group. That was one of his, it was like 6 points he had. I don't remember all of them, but one of them was the money part. Then it was, you must be valuable to the group. And the other one was other men of status need to see you as a man of status, meaning you can't just be out there a lone wolf by yourself and nobody knows you and call yourself high value. You got to be valuable to other people who have status, meaning they can look at you and say, okay, this guy can help us. And you have to be known by other people who have status. That the relational factor was part of the deal. And that is 100% true. That does not make you toxic. That means you're being a man. Again, ladies, are any of you interested in a man who doesn't have those things? I'm not saying you may not know any. I'm not saying your man may necessarily have all of it, but are you interested in a man who doesn't have it and isn't looking for it? I don't think most women are even interested in a man who's not even trying to become these things, even if they don't have them yet, even if you're working towards it, even if he had it and lost it, is he trying to get it back? So this whole concept is, again, crazy. So obtaining power and status. Of course, men want social status, and we want power, and we want financial status. Why? Because men have testosterone. Testosterone gives us competitiveness. It gives us aggression. It gives us drive. All right, that's what testosterone does. It pushes us to go achieve, conquer, accomplish, win, succeed, compete, defeat. That's what testosterone does. And when men find themselves not having any drive or they don't have any oomph in their life, usually what's one of the reasons why they don't have it? They call it low T. Low T means low testosterone. When men's testosterone levels go down for whatever reason, we lose that. We lose that drive, we lose competitiveness, we lose that aggression, we lose that go-getter energy, and we tend to be less attractive to the opposite sex because women are attracted to men who have some drive to go do something, to go get something. What woman is attracted to a man who doesn't have any drive? Even when I remember listening to Kevin Samuels, he would have these conversations with all different types of women asking about what kind of man they wanted. And a lot of times a woman would say something like, I can deal with a man who doesn't even have the financial status or the social status or the power right now, as long as, the woman would always say this, the caveat was, as long as he has the drive to go get it, as long as he has some ambition, he has some goals, and he wants to be somebody, even if he's a nobody today, I'm okay with that, as long as he's trying to be a somebody. I never heard a woman say he could be a nobody today and stay a nobody forever, and I'm good with that. I'm ready for him. Yes. Can't even keep my panties on. That's the guy I want. I never heard any woman say that. And I listened to a good amount of Kevin Samuels conversations. I never heard a single woman say that. They would all say something along the lines of what I said before that. That's the whole point. So there's no woman interested in this type of man. And again, what's ridiculous is that this woman is a woman. And I know she's attracted to men because she was telling the story. I heard her tell a story. I think she was with a man and he passed away. And so the point being, she's a heterosexual, at least she was. So what heterosexual woman is attracted to a man who has no drive and no ambition and doesn't want power? So her writing this, again, I don't know Amy Moran. So I don't know if she really believes this stuff or if she's just saying it because she gets paid to say it. And these days you have to ask that question. You never really know. So there are a lot of people who I know personally who say ridiculous things just because they get a paycheck to say ridiculous things, not because they actually believe them. So you got to be careful these days. As they say, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. Nowadays is like believe a quarter of what you see and believe the opposite of what you hear. That's kind of where it's become. Moving on to point number 4. We're talking here today about toxic masculinity, quote unquote, toxic masculinity. I don't really believe in this concept generally, but I'm breaking it down because a lot of people use this term. Next one is suppression of emotions. So I told you emotions are going to come up a lot in this conversation. So what Amy says is that men are taught to avoid showing vulnerability, sadness, or fear, as these are seen as signs of weakness. Now, this one is one that I can generally say I generally agree with the direction in which she's going. I don't consider this to be toxic, but I do generally agree that men are taught to avoid showing weakness, sadness, fear, or any signs of vulnerability. I generally agree that that is the case. And again, it's not that a man may never feel weak or sad or afraid or vulnerable in any way. It's just that two things. Number one, a lot of men do not learn how to control their mindset and they don't learn how to control their emotions. So what happens with a lot of men who do end up engaging in what we could call toxic behaviors are when they feel vulnerable or a man feels exposed or he feels fearful or in some way he feels weak or he feels embarrassed. Many of you know, what do men do when they feel like that? Y'all tell me in the comments. All you have enough life experience. Tell me, when you see a man who does not know how, he doesn't have good control of his mental faculties and he doesn't control his emotions and he feels one of these vulnerable emotions, what do those men end up doing? What do they do? I'm asking this as a question. I'm reading the comments. What happens when men who don't have control of their mindsets, they don't have control of their emotions, they haven't learned how to channel them, they haven't learned these things that I'm talking about, but they end up feeling vulnerable, weak, sad, fearful, exposed, embarrassed? What these men do, I'll tell you all while I'm waiting for y'all to answer. Yeah, so I'm starting to get some comments coming through. Yeah, Jesse said violence, right? Violence, fighting, alternative. Also, know what you're talking about. So, yeah, traditional all day. You're right. They get mad, they get angry, they get aggressive, and lash out. So, yes, exactly. So these are the men who end up doing this. These are your domestic violence men. These are the men who end up in domestic violence situations against other women. These are the men who go into schools with guns and bad things happen. These are the men who end up in and out of the incarceration system because every time they feel like another man, quote unquote, disrespects them, they start a fight. These are the men who don't know how to control their energies and don't know how to control their emotions. And that's not even so much toxic masculinity. That's just a lack of mental control because they haven't been taught. They haven't been trained. They haven't learned from someone like myself how to control your mindsets. And here's something that I said many years ago is still true to this very day. If you see somebody in your neighborhood, you see some guy who's standing on the corner and you know that he's been in and out of the prison system and in and out of jail, and he is probably not going anywhere in life, and he's going to be right there on that corner until he passes away. The same instincts, the same mindsets, the same energies that man has that lead to him getting in fist fights and fighting with the cops and getting arrested and going to jail again and getting another 3 years incarcerated and coming out doing the same thing all over again. Those men that you see in your neighborhoods, or those men that maybe you know of, or maybe some of you are those men, or maybe you are related to somebody who fits that description, the same energies that they have that lead them to doing those things, I have the same instincts, I have the same thoughts. Me, myself, sitting here with this bookshelf behind me, and I told you my background professionally and wearing these suits, I have the same thoughts and the same instincts and the same emotions go through me that go through that man. There's no difference, zero. The only difference is, the main difference is, I know how to channel and control those emotions and channel them into positive things where he does not. And since he doesn't know how to channel them into anything positive, he does the caveman response, which is just to lash out physically. That is the basis way that men communicate, is we communicate through physical violence. Why? Because we're capable of physical violence. And when men are capable of physical violence, but they don't know how to channel their energy into anything else, then they go to the only thing they know. And this is how we get violence. This is why we get so much violence. People haven't been taught how to control their emotions. And this is not so much about it being toxic masculine. It's just, again, every man who's listening to this has felt at some point vulnerable, embarrassed, sad, fearful, anxious, etc. We've all felt those energies. It's a matter of what you do when you feel the energy. What do you do with it? I've taken those energies and channeled them because I know how to transmute energy. Napoleon Hill talks about this in his book called Think and Grow Rich. If you haven't read it, you should read it. It talks about transmuting energy. Understand the law of conservation of energy states that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It merely changes forms. That's also known as transmutation, or it moves from one object to another. So anyway, what that means is you cannot create energy. It's impossible. What you do is you take energy from one place, you move it somewhere else. Or you give energy from where you are to someone else. Has any of you ever had somebody, you felt a certain energy, then somebody else walked into the room and their energy was so high, whatever it was, you start to feel how they felt? Of course you have. How many of you ever turned on music, like your favorite song, your favorite singer or rapper or band, and the energy of the music changed your energy? Of course, everybody has experienced that. That's called transmutation. That's someone taking their energy, and because their energy is so strong, it overpowers whatever you were feeling, and now you start to feel whatever they were feeling or whatever message they're trying to get across. This is one of the reasons why I really don't like going to concerts, but even though I'm a big fan of rap music, I never went to rap concerts. One of the reasons I never went to rap concerts is because if you go to a 50 Cent G-Unit concert, everybody in the crowd is going to start carrying themselves like 50 Cent and G-Unit, and eventually there's going to be a fight. And I don't want to be in those type of environments. If I go to a concert, I'm going to like a Sade concert or the Beyonce. Like everybody's calm and relaxed. Or I'm not trying to go to a G-Unit concert because somebody's going to fight, and I don't want to be involved in that. The point is, the transmutation of energy is a real thing. I'm just giving you that as an example. So men are taught to avoid showing these things. The problem is men who are taught to do this, they're being taught the right way. And she's framing it as if this is wrong. No, this is right. Men being taught to avoid showing their vulnerability, sadness, or fear This is actually good. And it's not so much avoiding it, it's channeling it. See, this word, instead of avoid, it should be channeling. Again, this is why I explained to you, this is loaded language. So using these absurd absolutes, this loaded language to draw as if there's a black and white, as if there's a binary here. It's not a binary. It's understanding that there are levels to this and there's no one right or wrong way to do it. And I understood this is just an article, so she had to kind of she had to use brevity for space purposes, but she shouldn't write a longer article because she's unqualified, because she's a woman. Why do we want a woman telling us what it means to be the proper type of man and what it means to be toxic? Again, she shouldn't even have written this article in the first place. But since she did, we are using it, as I am right now, for content. So what a man should do, and what any of you men who's listening to this should have been taught by a man in your life, and if you are old enough, you have children in your life, especially young males, or just young males that you have influence over, you should be teaching them that when they feel vulnerability, sadness, fear, anxiety, embarrassment, weakness, etc., that is nothing wrong with them to feel it. Their job is to channel that emotion into something positive, and hopefully you are showing them and demonstrating to them some positive avenues through which to channel that energy. That's the point. So I could take the aggression and the energy that I get from the testosterone that flows through me through being a man, and I could channel it into things like playing sports. Sports is a positive outlet for the energy that young men have. That's why a lot of young boys get introduced to sports, even if they end up not being athletes, because their parents are like, mom or dad are like, all right, this boy has too much energy. Let's put him into some karate. Let's put him on the soccer team so they can play basketball. He might be doing all the above because he has so much energy. We got to find an outlet for that energy. You don't give him an outlet for the energy, this is where you get violent young men, because they never learn how to positively channel their energy in a productive way. We all have the energies. Is a matter of what we do with them. Everybody understand me? Moving on to point number 5. And again, we're talking about quote unquote toxic masculinity and breaking down this garbage article written by a woman who's trying to tell you what it means to be a toxic man. Number 5, avoidance of help seeking. Again, this is already touched on earlier, but she has a whole point on it. Avoidance of help seeking. Again, this is loaded language. This is an absurd absolute. Every person who's listening to this has gotten help in some way, shape, or form in life, whether you asked for it or you accepted it. We've all gotten help. So no man completely avoids seeking help. That is not even a thing. Now, there are places where it's become more prevalent. Let's say, for example, with mental health. It's become more accepted, mainstream for anyone, especially men, to admit, hey, I have some type of issue going on in between my ears, and I want to get some help for that. That has become a more prevalent thing, let's just say, over the last 10 plus years in society. So in that area, I would actually agree with her. There's one thing I'll agree with her on with this point right here. So she says, seeking help, whether for emotional, mental, or physical health issues, is perceived as unmanly or weak. I generally don't agree with all 3 of those. I think on the physical side, I think if a man has a physical issue, I think most men will go get some help if they feel like something's wrong. Like something's wrong with my leg or my knee, I will go call somebody and find out what the hell is going on. Now, emotional or mental issues, seeking help, this one is a little bit trickier. This one I will say is a little bit trickier. I remember watching The Sopranos. Did y'all watch the TV show Sopranos? And at one point, well, during the entire show, from the very beginning, like the first episode, Tony Soprano is going to his the therapist, right? Dr. Melfi. So he's going to see the therapist from the very beginning of the show, but he doesn't tell his friends in the mafia that he goes to a therapist, because it was looked at as a sign of weakness that he was going to get therapy, and you might get offed if they find out that you're going to get therapy. So finally, later on in the show, if you watched it, at one point, Tony admits to his guys, his right-hand guys, that, hey, yeah, I go to a therapist. And the guys are, first, they're unclear on what he's saying because they didn't use that word. They were saying, well, you mean like a shrink? And he was like, yeah. And then the guy just got up and stormed off from the table because he was kind of, one of his guys was pissed off that Tony was supposed to be this big, strong leader, that things that Tony would always say when he was talking to his therapist. He would say, I want to be like Big Cooper, the strong, silent type of guy who's just strong and silent. And the thing is, the guy who's strong and silent has issues emotionally. They have issues mentally, just like everybody else. It's just you learn to channel and control those issues. You learn to channel and control your energies. And it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong if you don't go to a therapist. I've never been to a therapist. Maybe one day I will. If I feel like it'd be useful, maybe I'll go back. But And like Charlemagne the God, for example, has written books on therapy. He's a big advocate of therapy, maybe because it works for him. But it doesn't mean that the man who is going to a therapist is doing it, quote unquote, right. And the man who doesn't go to a therapist is doing it wrong. All right. That is a false frame. And again, I don't like when people frame things as if it's a binary. Most of these things are not binaries. There's an entire spectrum of ways that you can look at these things. But when they're framed as binaries, it's like, oh, if you're not doing it this way, then you're clearly doing something wrong. And if you do it this way, then that means you must be doing something right. This is not true. I completely reject this frame. And she's doing it. And she's not the only one. All right. Many people do this. But I'm using her as an example here because she decided to stick her neck out and write this article. So back to what it's saying. Seeking help. If you have an emotional issue, seeking help doesn't make you wrong. I know males who are therapists and they work with a lot of male clients. Mental health. Again, if you have an issue with your confidence or your discipline, I talk to a lot of males who are very open about these things and they want to fix them. They want to do something about them. So I don't really find this to be a thing. So I believe this is a straw man point that she's making here. I know that some men do it. I'm speaking from my anecdotal experience, of course, but I don't find this to be a thing. And when it comes to physical, I don't really notice that men will ignore a physical issue. Maybe when men get older, let's say you're over 50 or 60 and you got some issue and you're scared to go to the doctor, maybe that might be a thing. I don't think that makes you toxic. I think it just makes you human. All right, a lot of people avoid the dentist and the doctor because they are afraid of what they might find out or the pain they may have to endure based on what's found out. I think men and women do that, and I don't think that makes you toxic. So in general, she is in the right direction at this point and also in the wrong direction in many ways, as usual. Number 6, we're talking here today about this concept of toxic masculinity, and it's in air quotes, even if I don't do it every time. Here's the next point. This is point number 6, excuse me. Overemphasis on sexual conquest. All right, this is an interesting one. What she says is toxic masculinity means you think that masculinity is tied to sexual dominance and the pursuit of multiple partners. All right, let's get into this one. First of all, if we were to go back in historical times, if we were to go back to before we had the current modern world that we have, I think all of us agree that, and all of us would generally agree on this historical truth, that conquerors, rulers, kings, emperors, these men often had multiple women, multiple partners. They would have a wife, maybe, and then they would have mistresses on top of mistresses. And the wife knew that the king had a mistress or multiple mistresses, and the mistress knew that the wife had a king. I mean, that the king had a wife. And this was just the way that it was. If you look at people who are in positions of power today, some of which you know about, many of which you may not know about, can we agree that this still gets played out to this very day? It's a thing. Yes, it's a thing. And men know that this is a thing. There are women out there who know, many of you women who are listening to this know that it's a thing. And here's the other thing. There are a lot of women who are completely okay with it. They know the deal. And it's, again, going back to, I mentioned Kevin Samuel Zero. He would talk about this. All right. You're going to do your thing when you're doing your thing. Just don't shit where you eat. Men should always know that. It's number one rule. Don't shit where you eat. Protect yourself at all times. So there should be no diseases being transmitted. There should be no unwanted pregnancies happening. But other than that, a man who has a certain amount of power and status and resources is going to do his thing. And women understand this. And women will accept, depending on the type of man that you're with, you accept that this is going to happen. It doesn't have to be in your face in the modern world, but it does happen. And to consider this to be toxic, I reject this concept. That does not make you toxic to do this. And again, listen to the loaded language. Overemphasis on sexual conquest. Let me ask a question. That's the phrasing she used. Overemphasis on sexual conquest. How much emphasis on sexual conquest is acceptable, according to her? And again, why is a woman writing an article prescribing to a man how much he should emphasize sexual conquest? How much is okay? Anybody got an answer to that? How much sexual conquest is acceptable, according to this? I don't know what this woman is, a therapist. How much conquest is acceptable? And she's saying masculinity is tied to sexual dominance and the pursuit of multiple partners. Well, first of all, the way that sex actually occurs in a physiological way is, yes, the man is dominant. That's kind of the way it was designed. That's the way it's supposed to be. And sexual dominance, I don't know what she means by that. She doesn't go into any more detail. And the pursuit of multiple partners. I think here's what I guess, and women can tell me what you think, and men as well, that first of all, here's what we know, that men and women are not judged the same way sexually. Meaning a woman who's been with 20 partners and a man who's been with 20 partners are not judged equally. Why? Because we're not the same. Is there a different standard? Yes, there is a different standard because we ain't the same. So people call it a double standard as if it's not supposed to be a double standard. It's supposed to be a double standard. You're a woman, I'm a man. We don't have the same standard. We're not measured the same way. A man who has been with a bunch of women before he finally gets with the woman he's going to get with, that's not a negative against him. But if a woman had that same resume, yes, it is a negative knock against her. That's just the way that it is. And that doesn't make it wrong. And at the same time, I think, again, ladies, you let me know. Give me a yes or a no. Do you prefer a man who's had a healthy amount of sexual experience before he comes to you? Or would you want a man who's more, let's just call it pure, and he has had very little sexual experience? Which one would you prefer? More or a lot of sexual experience or a little bit of sexual experience? Which one would you prefer? I'm asking the women. So we'll see. We'll see if my theory is correct. My theory is a woman would prefer a man who's had some experience. Now, as long as he ain't still trying to get all that same experience under your nose, depending on who he is, I think most women would prefer a man who's had some experience. So Nicole says pure. Yasmin says, I don't care how much experience. Johanna says, doesn't matter because you can learn together. Okay. Interesting answers that I'm getting here. And what the author here is saying, that masculinity is tied to sexual dominance and the pursuit of multiple partners. Here's what I'll say to extrapolate from her point. And this one I know to be true as a man. Women are attracted to men who are desired by other women. Is this true or not? Yes or no, ladies? Women are attracted to men who are desired by other women. What makes the man attractive, what makes anything in life attractive, is the fact that other people want it. If you have something that nobody else wants, it's not that valuable. What makes something valuable is the fact that other people want it and they can't have it. This is the value of the trophy. This is the reason why participation trophies don't make sense logically, because what makes a trophy valuable is the fact that not everybody gets one. That's why the championship is the championship. There's one trophy for the one champion. Everybody else gets nothing. That's why the trophy matters. If everybody got a trophy, the trophy wouldn't matter. Nobody would compete for it. Nobody competes for a thing that everybody gets. Nobody competes for a thing that everybody gets. All right, people compete for things that not everybody can have. That's what makes it valuable. That's why if a man has a diamond watch that costs $30,000 or $100,000, or he has a really nice sports car, is the reason why he shows it off. He shows it off not because of the car itself. He shows it off because it's a reflection of the fact that he has something that other people can't have. And the same thing with a woman. You show off things that you know everybody ain't got. And it makes it more valuable that you have it because it is more rare. Scarcity makes the value of something go up. And the more availability of a thing, the less valuable it is. That's why if you saw a penny, if you're walking down the street, you see a penny on the ground, you're not going to stop and pick it up because the penny is not that valuable to you because there's so many of them. And because of what the reflection of his worth was just 1 cent. Now, if you saw $20 on the ground, Oprah Winfrey would stop to pick that up. Even though she's allegedly a billionaire, she would stop to pick up the $20. Why? Because of the value of it, all right? Because of the scarcity of it. Doesn't matter how much she already has. So the sexual dominance part, I know for a fact, I've seen it with my own eyes, and all men here can attest to this, that when you are a single man walking around looking for a woman or women, it is much harder to find one than when you are an attached man walking around with a woman. All the girls are looking at you when you got a woman with you. You walk in the mall where you live with a woman on your arm, all of a sudden, all the women are noticing you. And you're like, where were these women when I was single? I didn't notice any of them. They didn't notice me when I was single, walking around here by myself. But as soon as I got a woman with me, now all of a sudden, all the girls are looking at me. Where were y'all at when I was looking for y'all? I didn't see none of you. And it's an interesting phenomenon. And the reason this phenomenon exists is that when it is obvious that you are desired by other women, you become more attractive to other women. You are more attractive when you are something that other people want. And I heard someone say this years ago. They said the entertainment industry is a bandwagon business. That when you're a nobody, you're a nobody. But as soon as a couple people show that they want you, now everybody wants you. They're all just running and not get left. All right, that's the one. That's the way that the game works. And Buzzle said, "I'll pick up a penny." Yeah, okay. Yasmin said, "My exes didn't become desirable until I started dating them." Interesting. You sure about that, Yasmin? So I can say material things. No one has wanted any of my exes. Okay, possible. I'll take your word for it. Moving on to number 7. Point number 7 here. We're talking about toxic masculinity. Number 7, hyper competitiveness. All right. So I said earlier that was the worst point she had made so far. This is the worst one. So toxic masculinity says success is equated with outperforming others and achieving dominance in all aspects of life. Let me ask you a question. Men, how many of you don't want to outperform others and achieve dominance? How many of you men do not want to outperform other men and you don't want to achieve dominance? Now, here's what I found, because I sometimes hear men actually saying that they don't want to compete and they don't want to outachieve other men. I call bullshit on this point. Men are competitive. When a man is in his natural essence, mentally and emotionally, we compete. That does not mean that we measure every single thing we do by another person, because if you did that, you're eventually going to drive yourself into depression, because there's always going to be somebody with more than you. No matter how much money you got, somebody has more. No matter how much, whatever you have, there's always going to be somebody who has more of it. But that doesn't mean we don't have the healthy competition in our minds, even if we're trying to compete against our past selves, or we're trying to compete against the people in our town, in our neighborhood, in our group. We are competitive. Men are competitive. And when a man is in his natural essence, he is competing. Why? Because naturally we have testosterone. Testosterone leads to drive, competitiveness, willingness, and desire to dominate and to win and to be better. Men, this is our natural state. So for her to even put this in this article, that you trying to outperform others and achieve dominance makes you toxic, is she's telling you to go against your natural essence. And again, why the hell is a woman writing an article about how a man is supposed to see things? This makes no sense. If a man wrote an article about this, people would be tearing him apart. Who are you to be talking about a woman and the way she thinks and a woman's body and all that? Isn't that what the whole conversation was around the last election cycle? Who is a man to say something about a woman's body? So who is this woman to say something about the way a man thinks? But see, nobody's saying that about her. But on the other side, everybody says it. So this hyper competitiveness. Success is equated with outperforming others. Of course it is. That's what men are trying to do. There's a reason why peacocks show their feathers. So a lot of people don't notice that when peacocks show their feathers and people take pictures and stuff, that's only the male peacocks. Female peacocks don't have those. The female peacock is called a peahen. The reason why the male peacocks show off their feathers the way that they do is because they're showing off for the women. They are showing the women, I'm the one you want to get with. I'm the one you want to have babies by. That's what they're doing it for. It's a mating ritual, and it's also a dominance ritual, because they're showing to other men, hey, look at my feathers compared to your feathers. That's the same way that a man shows off his watch and his car and his house and his girl and says, look at mine compared to yours. That's why we call it peacocking. In the male world, it's called peacocking when a man shows off his stuff in a way that he's looking to be like, just to drive envy and show you, hey, I got this, you don't. All right, it's called peacocking. You notice people doing it on social media a lot. Why? Because it works. It gets attention. When a man peacocks and takes a picture next to his sports car and posts it on social media, he gets a whole lot of engagement from men and women. Women like it because it's showing, this man is showing, first of all, I have resources. Secondly, I'm going to let you know I got resources. And women like that in men. Doesn't mean you're going to choose a man who has it, but women like to see that, and that's why they engage. And men look at it and they like it too. Why? Because the man is looking at it and saying, well, hey, maybe I got one too, or maybe I want to have one, or you know what? I respect the fact that you have it and you're willing to show people that you have it. This is why those kind of posts get engagement. And it's from both sides, from men and women. Those posts get engagement. Why? Because we're competing. That's a form of competition. If you have a pretty girl, you're a man, you got a pretty girl, or you're a woman and your man is showing you off in his pictures all the time. If he wants to, I'm not saying you have to, but if he is, what is he doing? He's showing other men, hey, look what I have. And he's showing other women, hey, I got this. I'm desirable to pretty girls like this. And it actually makes more women like him, the fact that he has a woman. Paradoxically, you wouldn't think that's the case, but that is exactly how it works. So success being equated with outperforming others and achieving dominance in all aspects of life. How many of you women are interested in a man who's not trying to outperform other men? Now, what I hear some men say, and they're coping, is that, well, I'm not trying to compete. I'm who I am. I got to run my own race. And there is some value to that perspective, depending on how you're using it. There is value to that perspective, depending on how you use it. Yes, there is an angle where you need to compete against yourself and be better than you were yesterday. And that's the only person you got to beat, and, run your race and don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Is there value to that? Absolutely. Okay. So is there value to that? Yes. Everybody heard that. Yes. At the same time, The reason I want to get better, the reason I want to be better today than I was yesterday, because yesterday I was in the boxing gym and I was sparring, and this guy landed a nice couple jabs on me, and I don't want that to happen again. So I need to get better in my practice today. So next time I box that motherfucker, I'm gonna beat him. He ain't gonna land that jab anymore. All right. I am trying to get better than myself. The reason I want to get better than myself is so I can be better than him, and him. All right. So it's both at the same time. And what's happened in the world that we're in today, so many men have been emasculated, and so many men have had their balls chopped off and their natural male essence removed from them by articles like this bullshit that I'm looking at here today, is that many men will not admit to what I just told you. Many men won't admit to it. Many men will not admit, all right, I'm trying to get this speaking gig. They gave the speaking gig to this dude. I think I'm better than this dude. I'm pissed off that he got it over me. I'm going to use that anger. I'm going to use the drive of that anger and that annoyance to keep working on my stuff so I get so good so that I eventually end up beating him out in the long run anyway. See, many men won't admit that. And it's not because they don't feel it. It's not because it's not in their natural instincts. It's because their instincts have been basically stomped out of them by articles written by women telling you what it means to be a man. That's the problem in society today. This is what I call the feminization of society. Our society has become so feminized, not because women have done anything wrong, but because men have not stuck to their posts and told women when they come out with this kind of nonsense, yo, shut the fuck up. You have no idea what you're talking about. Why are you speaking on something you have no experience in? Because see, if a man does it to a woman, women will immediately shut him down. Man comes in the room and starts saying what a woman should do with her body. The women immediately shout him down. He can't even finish his sentence. But if a woman comes in the room and starts telling men what it means to be a man, no man stands up and says, why the hell are you talking? Why are you speaking? Nobody says anything. They just let it go. They applaud her because you don't want to look like a bully by telling a woman to shut the hell up. And see, this is the problem. It's not a bully to tell a woman to shut the hell up and stay in your place because you're talking about something you know nothing about. That's just a man being a man, and a woman needs to know her position, and your role ain't telling a man what it means to be a man. Oh, it makes you toxic because you said this. This is bullshit. What are you talking about? You're not a man. You don't have a penis. Why are you speaking? But they went and got her to write this article, and they put it out, and it's a very popular article. I Googled toxic masculinity. This came up. So I ain't the only one reading this article. And other people are posting this and sharing this like, hey, look at this. This is valuable. No, it's garbage. But I'm glad it came up because I get to use it. Anyway, hyper competitiveness. Any woman out there, if you're with a man who doesn't want to compete, I don't know if you have a man. You should check. That's not a man. Men want to compete. We want to beat other men. We want to have things that other men don't have. We want to be able to do things that other men can't do. And we want to be able to outdo a man in whatever area that man thinks he's somebody. We want to beat him. And again, if you're a male listening to this and you're unwilling to admit these things, you need to get back in touch with your instincts. And the first way to get back in touch with your instincts is stop listening to bullshit like women trying to tell you what it means to be a man. That's the first thing you need to do. You need to go get around some men who will actually keep it real with you and be honest with you so you can get back to the essence that was in you when you were born, but somehow you have allowed it to get stripped out of you by society. Because not like you need to learn this. You just need to reconnect with it. It's already there. This is not something you learn in school. It's already in you. You just got to get the nonsense out of your head so you can get back to your natural essence as a man. And again, no woman is interested in a man who doesn't want to compete and defeat other men. Even though your woman may say to you, if she's being nice, she may say something like, it's okay that you're not winning. It's okay that you're not competing. It's okay that you're not trying to defeat other men. You're good just the way you are. Women will tell you that because this is a woman's essence. A woman's essence may be to nurture you. I mean, a woman is nurturing and she's nice and she's supporting you and she doesn't want to try to make you feel bad. A woman will do that. In general, a woman will do that. But at the same time, if you started competing and kicking other men's asses and beating them and other things, and you were clearly at the top of the food chain as a man, I think she'd be a lot more attracted to you. Ladies, I got that right? Yes or no? Even though, now ladies, I'm asking this is a yes or no question. I'm asking to the women who are listening to this. Even though you may support and comfort your man and tell him he's okay as he is when he's not competing or he's getting his ass kicked in competition, if he started competing and beating everybody, you would be more attracted to him. Is this true or not true? There we go. There we go. So your woman will support you, man. And men, this is the reason why, and this is a very important point. Talking about that, and this is something that I heard that guy who got kicked off all the social media, the bald-headed kickboxer who lives overseas, who has those alleged charges against him. This is something that he talks about all the time. So I want to give him credit for this. I hear him talk about it often. He didn't make it up, but he talks about it a lot. Men, this is one of the reasons why you need a circle of strong, competitive, about something men in your life, and you cannot be spending all your time around women or your woman. You cannot. I know you love your woman. I know she's attractive, she's hot, whatever it is. You got kids. I know you want to spend time around your woman, but you need to have a circle of men, virtually or in person, ideally both, who will keep you connected to your natural masculine essence. You cannot connect to your masculine hanging out with a woman. It's not possible. You cannot connect to your masculine hanging with women. You have to be around men. This is why when I talk about feminine energy men, often feminine energy men, I'm not saying all men who fit this description are feminine energy, but the ones who are usually fit the description of they didn't have a man around when they were growing up. Their dad wasn't around. They were raised by a woman, so they have the energy of a woman and the body of a man. Most of the time when I come across a feminine energy man, it's a man who did not have a man in his life growing up. I'm not saying every man who didn't have his dad around is feminine energy, but everyone who I meet who is feminine energy, almost all the time, it didn't have a man around them growing up. And you can just feel it coming off them as soon as they start talking, because they haven't been around men. So they only know how to conduct themselves like women because that's the only role model that they had. And this is one of the biggest problems when men don't do their jobs and raise their kids, is that you're creating feminine energy men who have the physicality to do damage, but they don't have the mentality to control their energy. And this is where we get problems. Yes, NPR, that person, that's what I'm talking about. I can't say his name on certain apps, especially TikTok. So anyway, this thing with you men, you need to get around other men. You need to somehow, some way be around other men. Get a damn gym membership. All right, go to the gym. All right, get around other men. Join a mastermind. Do something to where you are around other men and be in contact with them consistently. As much as your woman may complain that you're not around as much, she will appreciate you more if you spend more time around men, enough time around men that you are connected to your masculine. So when you get around her, she can step into her feminine. But if you're always around her, you're going to start acting like her. Now you got two women. Nobody benefits. And even the ladies who are listening to this, I'm sure you appreciate some downtime not around him. And if he goes out and does what he's supposed to do, I mean, we go back to the caveman days. The man's job when he left the cave was to go hunt and gather. He was supposed to go kill something to come back with some food, and then you will cook it up, right? Isn't that what you want? Or you want your man to leave the house in the morning. You don't want him to lay in bed with you all day. Maybe every once in a while he can lay in bed with you all day and y'all can just watch Netflix, and that's fun, and you can post about it on your Facebook. Cool. Maybe once a month, maybe you could do something like that, or once a year, or maybe even never. But eventually, you don't want your man laying in bed with you watching TV every day, all day. Eventually, you're looking at him like, somebody gonna pay the bills around here? All right, somebody gotta go get something. Somebody gotta go cook some food up. So back in the days, in the caveman days, when the man left the cave, it was for a specific reason. I'm about to go kill dinner, and I'm gonna bring it back, and you cook it, and then we'll eat. But if nobody leaves the cave, how y'all gonna eat? All right. We need somebody to go out and get something. And the woman is expecting you to go do it, man. That's why you need to be around other men, because how you going to go kill dinner? You don't know how to kill dinner. The woman can't teach you how to kill dinner. You ain't learn that by dealing with other men. Everybody follow what I'm saying? So you're going to go kill dinner. You got to hang around some men who know how to catch and kill dinner so that you can catch and kill dinner. And if you ain't catching and killing dinner, well, your woman's going to leave you for a man who can, because she got to eat. Those kids got to eat. Everybody follow what I'm saying here. Now, this is your responsibility as a man. So you got to get around some other men, males out there. Even if you did grow up with your dad and you got taught, that you still need to be around other men who will sharpen the iron. You know, as they say, iron sharpeneth iron. You got to be around other men who can do this so that you can learn and you can stay sharp. Even if you're good at it, you need to be around other, even if you're teaching them how to do it. It keeps you sharp to be able to teach things. If you know something really well and you're teaching it over and over and over again to other people, you stay sharp in knowing what you know. But if you stop having to teach it, then your blade is going to go dull as well. Moving on, point number 8. We are talking again about quote unquote toxic masculinity. Point number 8 is pressure to provide and protect. All right, so I've already told you twice that I thought the point I was reading was the worst one she had shared. This is the worst one. This one takes the trophy for now. Pressure to provide and protect. Men are seen, this is her description, toxic men. They see men as the sole or primary providers and protectors in families, placing financial and emotional burdens on them. Loaded language masterclass. That's what this article is. If you want to learn how to use loaded language, you should read this article on verywellmind.com about toxic masculinity. This is a masterclass in loaded language. Damn near every other word is loaded language. First of all, They say placing financial and emotional burdens on men who are seen as the sole or primary provider. That's not a burden, it's a responsibility. It's two different words, completely different connotations. A burden is like something that you didn't expect that's on you and it weighs you down, it slows you down, and makes you worse. A responsibility is something that you take ownership of and you are proud to have it because you are happy that you are able to fulfill it because you know it's serving yourself and it's serving others. So it's not a financial and emotional burden to be a provider and a protector of a family. That's a responsibility, and that's the man's job, as decreed in the Bible in the chapter of in the book of Genesis. That's the man's responsibility to provide and protect. That's your responsibility to do that. That's not a burden. It's not a problem. It's a responsibility. And if you're not handling your responsibility, then you have no power. Connecting to another point that we made here. If you have no power, you can't do anything about a situation, then the situation controls you. You don't control the situation. And again, ladies, how many of you are interested in a man who takes no responsibility and thus has no power? That's not a man. That's two women in the house together. So pressure to provide and protect. So they say men are seen as the sole or primary providers. There are plenty of women out there. I know many of them. Most of the, if I think about it, most of the women who I know they run businesses. They're entrepreneurs. That's how I know. I know them from being in business. So it's not like they are even fitting into this position of being the sole provider, but also most of the women I know who are in relationships, the man is the primary provider, meaning most of the money is coming from the man. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. And even women who don't work, they maybe take care of home, which is a full-time job in and of itself. Any of you who has kids, you know, taking care of home when there are kids is a job. And it's actually more work than it is to run a business or be a CEO or an entrepreneur. It's a lot of work taking care of kids as they're growing up, especially when they're young. And if there's more than one, that is a job in and of itself, even though it doesn't come with a paycheck or no healthcare benefits. That's a job. So a man being the sole or primary provider is a man's, I believe, men in their natural essence, this is your desire, even if you're not doing it right now. It is your desire to be the sole / primary provider of resources and definitely the physical protector of your house. Any man who's not the physical protector of your house, what are you doing? Who's protecting the house? Your wife? What are you doing? You absolutely, the protector part, we could just throw that out. That's not even worth discussing. But as far as being a provider, even if you are not the primary provider right now, even if your woman is kind of holding it down right now because your money's down, as long as you have the desire to get to that position, then I think the woman can be okay. Like, at least, does this guy have any initiative to want to take over this spot? Now, if he doesn't want to, ladies, I don't know what you're going to do with that kind of guy. I don't know. But if he is not even trying, as long as he's trying and he's aiming and that's his goal and that conversation has been had, then I think a woman can be okay with a down period, because that happens to people. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. But as long as you're trying to get back up and you're working to get back to it, then I think that can be respected by a woman. Now, what I see a lot in the world today is, again, what we're talking about right here, is that men being preached to that something must be wrong with you if you believe this is what you're supposed to do. All right, this is a man's natural position to provide and protect for his family, period. This shouldn't even be in the article. I don't know why she wrote this. Maybe she was running out of content. Last one, and I'm going to answer questions and comments at the end. I got one more point, and I'm going to answer questions and comments. Last one, number 9, stigmatization of non-traditional masculinities. So let's see what this means. She says, it is toxic to believe that men who deviate from traditional masculine roles, such as a stay-at-home dad or an artist, I don't know why she put artist in there, are often judged or ridiculed. So as far as the content of this point, I actually agree that a man who deviates from traditional masculine roles will get judged and will get ridiculed. I agree that yes, they will. If you're a stay-at-home dad, your wife is going to work every day and bringing in the money, and you're a stay-at-home dad taking care of the kids, do you get judged? Do you get looked at funny? And could you possibly get ridiculed by other men? The answer is yes, you can, and yes, you will. Does that make the men who are doing it toxic? No, this means that they're men. And everybody judges. We got our opinions, and people are free to express their opinions, whatever they may be, even if you happen to disagree. And any man who doesn't want to go out and be the provider and be the protector is not in touch with his natural masculine essence. If that's what you want to do, fine. What I'm saying is I'm asserting you are not in touch with your natural masculine essence. You've been listening to and hanging around too many women or a bunch of gay guys, and this is how you got to that position. This is not what you were not born with that mentality that I'm not going to be the provider and protector of my home. I'm gonna stay home with the kids while the wife goes out and hunts for the food. Like that's no. You were not born with that wiring. That was taught to you by smart people using loaded language like this person, Amy Moran, and the people who write for Very Well Mind. They're the ones who condition you to this. And understand, ladies and gentlemen, that conditioning starts in preschool. You're sending your kids to school. You better be watching what they're teaching your kid, because they are teaching your males to act more like women, because this is supposed to make society better. And it's fine for the girls to think this way. Generally, it's not as harmful. Let me say it differently. It's not as harmful for the girls to think this way, because they're teaching men to be girls. So they're teaching girl stuff to girls. The problem is your daughter is going to grow up looking for a man who's like that. And this is going to realize he's not actually a man. And if you have a son, this is even more pernicious, because they're teaching him to just not even be in touch with his own natural instincts. And again, they're being taught by people who are smart enough to use loaded language, very manipulative verbiage, that when a kid is 8 years old or 12 or even 19, they are not advanced enough mentally to be able to catch the bullshit the way that I'm catching it. See, I can catch, call out, and push back against the bullshit because I have the experience, I have the seasoning to do it. But if I was 16 hearing this, reading this same thing, I wouldn't be able to push back on it the way that I'm pushing back on it right now. So if you're sending your kids to school, you better be very careful of what they're learning and who they're learning from, because this is the kind of stuff that's being taught. You understand? See, the stuff that I say, they're not showing this in school, but the stuff that she writes, this stuff gets through the curriculum. See, she could be a person being a guest speaker at a high school because she has the right approach. She has the right energy. She's using the right language. They could hire her to come speak at a high school classroom and talk to men about toxic masculinity. They would never hire me. No school district will hire me to come talk to them, because I would tell them what I'm saying right here. Any of you think this would ever work in a school? Hell no. No chance. But hers would. And that's the issue. That's the issue. So y'all got to be careful where you're sending your kids and what they're consuming. Because when you send them to those facilities, especially if you send your kids to public school where you really don't have a say in what they do, you see what happens when people go to the board meetings and try to talk, right? Y'all seen those videos? All right. So you don't really have a say. All right. This is what they're teaching your kids. And again, it's dangerous for your daughters too, because again, they're going to go out into the world thinking that they need a man who fits these descriptions, like the opposite of these descriptions. And then they're going to realize, like, this is not a man. And then she might realize, well, I don't want any man. And now your daughter is not attracted to men anymore. Or she decides she wants to be a man. All right, this is a slippery slope when I'm laying out there. I'm kind of being facetious, but you get my point. So all that being said, folks, let's take questions and comments. I did a lot on this topic here today. We are talking about, the concept is the alleged toxic masculinity. So let's get into it over on YouTube first. I'm gonna do YouTube, then Rumble if there is any, then Instagram, then TikTok. So Godey says, Dre, you are too blunt and too honest to be a politician. LMAO. Yes, I could never be a politician. To be a politician, you have to lie to people. You have to lie intentionally to be a politician. And I couldn't lie intentionally. I could lie by accident, but I couldn't lie intentionally. And you got to do it all day, every day. That's the problem. O-Dog says, I never go to a rap concert. That's why there's no more Source Awards. The only rap concert I go to is Kanye West. Yeah, I would go to a Kanye. That's a good example. Yeah, I'll go to a Kanye concert. You see, Kanye doesn't make you feel like a thug when you listen to his songs. But any other rapper, I did go to a Jay-Z show like maybe 5-6 years ago. But Jay-Z is a little bit more calmer. But I would never go to a 50 Cent concert, even though I like 50 Cent. So Mad Villainy said, I joined late. Will you link the article? Yeah, let me see if I can find it, or I can grab the link. It was from Very Well Mind. And I think she wrote more than one, because I got this list from a different. The article that I'm looking at right here is not the same as the one that had the list, but I'll just put it in the comments. Mad Villainy. Brando Smith said, in general, you can't expect honesty when asking women what they like in a man, because they'll say things that make themselves sound more virtuous than they are. Just got to know their actions. That's a really good point. Let me read that again, what Brando said on YouTube. He said, you can't expect honesty when asking women what they like in a man, because they'll say things that make themselves sound more virtuous than they are. You just got to know their actions. I think that's probably true of men as well. If you just look at people's behaviors, you learn a lot more about them than you listen to what they say. Generally, that's 100% true. And yeah, woman will say, I want a man who's this, this, and this. But then you look at who she's actually responding to. And this is exactly why I said, men, you cannot be spending all of your time around women. I understand you like women. You're attracted to women, physically attracted to them, sexually attracted. But when it comes to the things that will help you stay in touch with your natural male essence, you have to hang around men. You can't just be hanging around females all day. And it's especially important for you men who weren't raised by your fathers, because you got to catch up. You're already behind. NPR, yes, that guy. Matt Villainy says, don't have men around me. Might be why I tune into Dre every day. Well, that's a good start. You can at least do it through the internet. All you males who you don't have men in your physical environment, you can at least do it through the internet. Good thing about the internet is you can access pretty much anything you want. Anything you're looking for, you look for it is there. O-Dog said, I'm not trying to lay in bed all day with my woman. That feels so unnatural. Yeah, exactly. But there are some women who, if you ask them, they would say, it'd be so fun to be just stay in bed all day and watch a whole binge watch Netflix. You might want to do that once or twice a year. But then you're like, baby girl, you got to stay here. I got to go out into the world and do what a man's supposed to do, which is go and do something. Go kill something and bring it back. That's a man's responsibility. And your woman will appreciate it when you bring something back. She might not like that you're gone, but she'll appreciate it when you come home with the bacon. Ray says, I'm trying to figure out where she's getting this from. Most of these stigmas or expectations are forced by women. Well, she's a woman. What do you expect? Well, women wants in a man that is emotional, doesn't desire power, protect, etc. Exactly. So, Ray, that's been the thesis of this entire live stream, is where is she getting this from? Because first of all, she's a woman writing about toxic masculinity, which she's, first of all, completely unqualified. Secondly, I've heard this woman in interviews, and I know for a fact that she was married to a man at one point. I don't know if she's married right now. I don't know her current situation. It was a while ago I heard her, but I know at one point she was heterosexual and attracted to men. I don't know if that's still the case, but what she's saying, it just sounds completely ridiculous. And again, you also got to take it with a grain of salt, Ray, that there are many professionals out there. I notice this in men, but I notice it more prevalently in women. And this is an important point. I notice this very more prevalently in women, that they will go to work at their job and they will espouse principles and ideas that they do not truly believe, but they will espouse them because they get paid to do so. So she might be fronting. This whole thing might be a front just because she gets paid to do it. And I wouldn't put it past any woman. All due respect to the women who are listening to this, I wouldn't put it past any woman to do that, to espouse a certain way of thinking, a certain worldview, just because they know they get a pay, they keep getting their paycheck if they keep pushing it. And I know women personally who push some bullshit that I know that they know is bullshit, but they do it anyway because they get paid to do it. Baby Lynn on Instagram, what's going on? Brandy, good morning over there on Instagram. Yes, they are all over the place. You're right. Life of Delu said, man, they know they want experience. Yes, exactly. You're correct. Ray says, so like Beyonce and Cardi B. Well, interesting. I don't know with Beyonce. I mean, hers was entertainment. It's a little bit different with entertainers, Ray. Because entertainers do things that make the registers ring for entertainment purposes. So like Beyonce, for example, when she came out, Destiny's Child, y'all remember Destiny's Child had a whole bunch of songs about independent ladies, right? All the single ladies, all the independent ladies. I'm an independent woman. I don't need no man. I take care of myself. Wasn't that her whole thing? And then she went and married a guy with more money than her, who is the man, right? So she went and married a guy with more money than her. And now she's a subservient wife. So you got to be careful with entertainers because they will say things for entertainment purposes that they don't truly mean. So I never heard Beyonce come out and say, like, speaking as a human, I never heard Beyonce say, I want to be single forever. I don't need no man. She never actually said that. That was just in the song. So you got to separate what somebody says in a song from what they actually believe in their real life. So I can't put Beyonce in that group. Cardi B, I don't really listen to her talking. I don't want to hear Cardi B speak. Anyway, let's get over to TikTok and see what we got going on. O-Dog said, there's so much, no such thing as an independent woman, biggest lie ever told. I agree with you. All right, so Weaver Cat said, the fact that you can't handle someone's opinion without get emotional is proof. Who are you talking about? You talking about me? Whose opinion am I talking about? I haven't addressed anybody's opinion. I'm just addressing an article and the nonsense that's in it. I'm not sure this is her true opinion. I just explained to you. People will say things professionally they don't actually believe personally because they get paid to say things professionally. Politicians do it all day, every day. Y'all been watching these Senate hearings? These politicians don't believe everything that they say. They do what they got to do to get the bag. That's the thing that works in the world. It's always been the case. The only difference now is that we can point it out. Greg Pitt said, men are back. Hopefully, Greg. Hopefully men are back. Camp for Fun said, I agree, but I don't consider that toxic. Yeah, I think I remember what you were responding to. Yes, correct. Alternate Volts said they support. I got to be careful saying that country's name, but I get what you're saying. Paulina said they get mad and then ignore you. That's one thing a man can do. He can get mad and ignore you. Now, he's at least channeling his emotions to stay away from you. Now, the man who can't do that, that's where you get domestic violence. So let's see. Just Watson said, can I get a quick intro about what this live is about? It's about toxic masculinity, quote unquote. Well, you got it. You figured it out. Imrak says, bro doesn't know what the sun does. I don't know what you're talking about. Just Watson said, can this translate to any male masculinity then? Can what? What's the this you're referring to? Imrak says, claiming a social cue has an energy. What did I say? Tell me what specifically you're responding to, and I'll tell you what I said. Defend it or clarify. Sandy got the number 3 gifter badge. Congrats. Count Duke says, people taking advantage of others isn't a good thing. We just excuse it. Apply this to everything. Okay. Yasmin said, I don't care how much experience. It doesn't matter because you can learn together. Okay. So it seemed like that's the perspective that the woman has. Now, at the same time, ladies, you all understand, though, that a man does care how much experience a woman has before you become his woman. A man does care how much experience you have had. I know men who will not be with a woman just because she's had a certain level of experience and will choose a different woman because she has a lot less experience. Just on that basis alone, regardless of everything else, he will choose the woman who has the least amount of experience because that's just his personal preference. I don't find women make that distinction. I don't think women really care. So you all saying it doesn't matter, I believe you. But I know a lot of men who it absolutely matters. It matters a lot to them. Yasmin said, I can say that with material things, but no one has wanted any of my exes. Why didn't anyone want your exes, Yasmin? Were you you mean they didn't want them when you were with them, or they didn't want them once they became your ex? You said it didn't become desirable until you started dating them. So why did you desire them? Then is my question. So you wanted someone that nobody else wanted. My question is, why is that? If you truly believe that, unless you're joking. Alternative Vault says, all men want to achieve greatness. A competitive man is a healthy man. Well, I agree with your second sentence. I don't agree with your first one. Do all men want to achieve greatness? No. I think, again, masculine essence has been drummed out of a whole lot of men. Again, this article is a very popular article. This woman is a very popular writer. I've heard her for years. She's been around for a long time. Very popular work. And it ain't just women listening to her. She's talking to men. So, no, all men do not want to achieve greatness. Only a small percentage of men want to achieve greatness. Most men are okay being average. King Skag says, it's called insecurity, not masculinity, that a man is secure, isn't concerned about bigger men. Well, technically, Ken, you could call it insecurity. So let's just say I pull up and I got a sports car that costs $100,000, and you pull up next to me in a sports car that costs $200,000. And I'm like, damn, this dude got a bigger car than me or a better car than me. I'm going to go get the $300,000 car. You technically could call that insecurity, that I'm insecure about my $100K because yours costs $200K. So I'm going to go get the $300K to prove to you that I'm better. You could call that insecurity if you want, but it wouldn't be wrong to call it masculinity either. You could even call it toxic if you wanted to. It becomes a subjective thing. But when a man feels insecurity in some way, that insecurity can be channeled into positive behavior that leads to a productive and effective outcome. So look at somebody like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, if you watch that documentary about Michael Jordan, where did the essence of his competitiveness come from? If you watch the documentary, you know where it came from. It came from his father, because he grew up with both parents, and his father would say things to him like, hey, you're crying too much, you're misbehaving, you're not listening. His dad would be outside, like working on cars and stuff. His dad would use his hands a lot. And his dad would tell him, go inside with the women. And Michael Jordan even said it. They would say it in the documentary. Go inside with the women. His dad would say that as an insult to Michael, young Michael, as a way to like let him know, like, you're not being manly enough for me, son. Go inside and hang with the females. And it seemed as if that planted a seed in Michael for this competitive drive that he took all the way to the heights of superstardom. So could you call that insecurity that his dad planted in him? Yes, you could. But you could also say that insecurity got transmuted into drive that led to productive behavior that led to Michael Jordan becoming Michael Jordan. So you're not necessarily wrong, Ken Skag. It's just the way that you want to frame it. Whatever way you want to frame it. Easy Sam said, women love dominance, whether they admit it or not. I would agree with that. Punchy, what's going on? Good morning. Yasmin said, if the girl he has is pretty, it makes him more interesting. Oh, yes, it does. Absolutely, it does. I've seen that with my own eyes in different ways. Traditional says men today are not the men of decades ago. I agree with that. Out to Glean said, yes, it is a problem. Yes. Yasmin says, because women have each other's backs, men compete with each other. Different. No, Yasmin, I could say you could switch men and women around in those two sentences and still be true. I've seen women be extremely catty with each other for no reason, and extremely catty for no reason. And I've also seen men stand behind each other and defend each other. So technically, you could be right no matter which way you frame those two sentences. TJ said, I call it the pussification of society. Yes, same thing. Yeah, same thing. Easy Sam said, I had to stop watching Steve Harvey because of that. Well, Steve Harvey panders to females. He wrote entire books pandering to women. That works for Steve because, again, it helps boost his career because he gets a whole bunch of women in his audience and they love everything that he has to say. And if you're a man and you have women attracted to you, then eventually you get men to come around because they want to be where the women are. So this is a great hustle for Steve Harvey. I do not agree with Steve's approach, but I understand his approach. It's a hustle. And I respect people's hustles. So when I call out this stuff that I'm telling y'all hear how I'm describing it, right? I'm not calling them bad people. I think Steve Harvey is a smart hustler. I wouldn't do his hustle, but I understand his hustle. I'll say it that way. Rejuvenated said, TV teaches weakness of character. Yes, depending on what you're watching. That's correct. Yasmin said, being determined and ambitious is the biggest turn on. Now, that one I have found to be generally true with all women. Yes, women like a man who's determined and ambitious. Doesn't mean you don't want him to stay home and spend time with you at time, but eventually he got to be like, yo, I gotta go kill something. Women want men to go kill something. So we got a lot of yeses on that question when I was asking about that. Faye said, where they find them? LOL. Are you a woman or a man? And who are you talking about? I think you can get some help. You might get some help in the comments if you give me some context. Person of interest says competition with men is based on procreation. Absolutely it is. Yes. The essence of man is animal, and animals compete with each other so that they can mate with the girls. And men, humans, we do the same thing. It's just we have these big brains so we can rationalize and contextualize things in different ways. But ultimately, that's what it comes down to. What it comes down to for men is that we want to be the most desirable mating partner with all the women. That's our natural instinct. So the challenge with this whole thing she was saying about sexual partners is that, again, in most animal worlds, most animals do not stay with one partner through life. And in the human spirit, this is why you hear a lot of men talking about this, that monogamy is this social construct. Everything's a social construct. Many things are social constructs. They say monogamy is a social construct. We create this idea that a man's supposed to be with one partner their whole life. And a lot of men are saying, they're saying it openly now. It's always been a thing, but a lot of men are more open about saying, well, I don't want to be with one woman. I want to be with a bunch of women. I want to have a bunch of kids by a bunch of different women. And I'm procreating. And you hear somebody like, someone I've heard talk about this has some intelligence to them is Nick Cannon. Y'all heard of Nick Cannon, right? So I think, what's this show called? Cannon's Class or something like that. I've heard a couple episodes, but he talks about that. He talks about it in an intelligent way. There are other people who talk about it. Excuse me, they're not very intelligent, but he's pretty intelligent. Even though I wouldn't do what he does. I understand it. And he talks about, hey, this is not our natural thing. It's to be with one person. Our natural thing is to move around and have multiple. You may not even know who your kids are. You might come across your kid and not even know it's your kid. Way back in the days, that would happen. A man would be with so many different women because his whole thing was to spread his seed, be fruitful and multiply. That doesn't mean you got to do it with one person. You can multiply with a bunch of women. So again, I understand this approach. I'm not saying you should go do it, but I understand it. And there are women out there who understand and appreciate it. Not all women, because in our world today, many women have been taught that they should demand that the man got to be just with me and only me. And again, it also depends on the status of the man. Let me be very clear. A man who has a certain level of status has these options, because in order for a man to spread his seed with a bunch of different women, first of all, a man has to have a bunch of different women even interested in him in the first place. If you only have one woman interested in you, then you do not have the option. And who was talking about that? I can't remember who said it. It might have been the bald-headed kickboxer. He might have said it, but I've heard a few men talk about this, that if a man says something like, I'm loyal to my woman and I don't mess around on my woman and I don't cheat and I don't do all those things, he said, well, first of all, we got to look at you. Do you actually have the option? If you don't have the option to cheat, then you not cheating is not a virtue because you don't have the choice. You don't have any other woman who wants you. So it's not like you're practicing any level of discipline to not cheat because you don't have another woman interested. Now, if you got 20 women interested and you already got one woman and then you don't do it, then that's the thing. So it depends on your status. So this is a status game amongst men. And every man understands this. The thing is that a lot of men, when they get to a point where they realize they're not winning the status game, they act like they never want to play. That's what we call coping. But that's a different conversation for a different day. All right. Competition with men is based on procreation. Personal interest, yes, that's 100% correct. Michelle Lincoln said Jordan Peterson. He speaks on it. Yeah, Jordan Peterson does speak on it. And Jordan Peterson has some things I agree with and some things that I don't. But I like him. I like his first book, 12 Rules for Life. I liked. Very wordy, very verbose. He said he took 10 words to say one word. That's just his style. But I appreciate it. I appreciate him for who he is. And I didn't read his next book yet. The 12 More Rules, I didn't read that one yet, but I have it. I have it in my library. Why So Serious says, who said it was? I don't know what you're referring to. Erica says, my husband has a lot of friends and several girlfriends say they wish they had that. Men need it. I remember years ago, this is like 10, 12 years ago, I was playing. There was an older guy because my background's in basketball. So here in Miami, I would play in like the recreational league sometimes. And there was guys who I met, they were a little bit older than me. So they were maybe 5, 10 years older than me. And one time, one of the guys who kind of ran, they would play basketball every Sunday at University of Miami. And one of the guys invited me to come play. And I would go play with them. And I realized why they were playing. They weren't playing basketball just for basketball. Because these are older guys. These guys were like 40 plus at this time. And playing basketball when you're over 40 is a challenge. So I realized after I went there a few times that they weren't there to play basketball. They were there because they needed time away from their wives and their kids to be around other men. And that's why they played basketball every week. That basketball was just a chosen activity. They had that in common. So, all right, let's play basketball. We got to get together. We got to give our wives a convenient reason why we got to get out the house and away from the kids. All right, we're going to go play basketball. That's actually what they were doing. They were playing basketball. Other men will play golf. Other men will go fishing. But it's the same. Other men will ride motorcycles. But it's the same thing. They needed time to be around other men and kind of fellowship. That's really what it was. And basketball was just a pretext. Now, I remember I was sitting next to one of the dudes, and I was asking him about this. He was an older guy. He's probably 50 and wasn't even in that great shape for basketball. But he was, because I saw he had like this tan line on his shoulder. And I was like, man, you were outside a lot yesterday. He was like, yeah, I was at a soccer tournament for one of my kids. And one of the things that he told me, he said, I tell my wife, the fact that I come here every Sunday and play basketball is the reason why we're still married. And that was the essence of what it meant. He said, the reason we still married is I come here and play ball because he got to have his time away from her and away from the little ones and be around some men. Was exactly my point. So, Erica, that's correct. You said several girlfriends wish they had it. Yes, women need their time away from men, and men need their time away from women. And the kids too, especially when you have kids. Person of interest said, if you snared a rabbit, wouldn't you bring it back to a woman? Yeah, for her to cook it so we can eat it. That's the point. Why so serious? I don't understand what your questions here. You're spamming and saying things, but I don't know what you're responding to. So you said, why do you only want to be around men? No, that's not what I said. All right, why so serious? Your comments are getting troll level, so you got to go. Unfortunately. Yasmin said, by the way, women did hunt during caveman days. I don't doubt that, Yasmin. You get the essence of my point, though. Do you not? The essence of my point is that the men did the hunting and the women did the nurturing and the cooking. Same way it is today. I'm not saying there aren't exceptions, but that's still the same thing. Any woman out here these days who goes out and hunts, quote unquote, and you go out and make money, etc. If your man came to you, your husband came to you and said, hey, I just got a new deal in business or a new promotion at my job. I make enough money now that I'll make all the money. All I need you to do is stay home, take care of the house and take care of the kids, and you ain't got to work anymore. How many of you would say no? Most women would say yes. Most women would say, great, I'm good. Let's go. If he actually had what he said he had, then you would probably be good with that. I think most women would be good with that. Unless you happen to have some super level of ambition in your career. Let's say you're an actress or you're Beyonce. You just want to keep making albums. Most women, I believe, would say yes to that if it was offered to them. Person of interest said, Bible, I'm out. What's your issue with the Bible? Anyway. America said, I'm pandering? Who am I pandering to? Please tell me who I'm pandering to. I don't know who I'm pandering to. If I am, please let me know. Why So Serious said, this is toxic masculinity, my guy. Okay, I'm fine with that. I don't mind someone labeling something that I say or do as toxic masculine. I'm fine with being toxic, according to whoever's saying it. Let's see. America said, this dude be watching too much talk shows. I don't watch any talk shows. I am the talk show. Holy Shirt and Pants said, insecure about your sexuality. What does that even mean? What are you talking about? Yasmin said, usually stay-at-home dads have a wife who are boss babes. Nothing wrong with that. All right, well, Yasmin, you're a female. So I understand your perspective. But no, I don't want to. I personally, and I will say that I speak for men who are in their masculine essence, do not want a boss babe as a woman. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this. There are many exceptions to this. There are men who are okay with it, and they would probably argue, if they heard me talking right now, they would probably say, well, hey, Dre, I'm more masculine than you are, and I got a boss woman, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. And they would probably basically attack me for even saying what I just said. So it would be a healthy debate. But I find a man who is truly in his masculine energy, the woman doesn't even feel like she needs to be a boss babe around him, because there can only be one boss. Organization can't have two bosses. So if a man is truly a boss himself and truly in his full masculine, he's not even going to attract a woman who considers herself a boss. It's not going to work. It's like oil and water. They don't mix. A man who's truly in his masculine essence is going to attract a woman who is in her full feminine, and a feminine woman. So a woman who's a boss babe is going to attract a man who has a good amount of beta in him. I'm not saying that as an insult to the man. Some men use the word beta as an insult. I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm saying that these are just the way the energies interact. If one person's a boss, the other person got to be the worker. That's just how it works. And that's in every relationship. You cannot have two bosses in a relationship. It won't last. They can try, but it's not going to last. Every organization has a boss. What's the next YG user? You're saying that? Yasmin said, we were also taught men to be providers. Yes. Can we not teach women could be too? Yasmin, you couldn't teach them, and men are not taught to be providers. It is in our natural human wiring to be providers. That's not taught to us. It's not something you go to school and learn to be a provider. It is socialized, and that's what this article is saying, that it's socialized that men are to be providers, and I rejected that frame. It is not socialized for a man to be a provider. It is part of your natural instinct to be a provider. If you took let's say you took a bunch of humans that were just cavemen. Let's say you took a bunch of kids, right? Let's say you took 10 men and 10 women from babies, and you put them on a desert island, and you gave them like food, clothing, shelter so they could survive, but you didn't even teach them how to talk, right? Just think about this. This is a mental experiment for all of you. Didn't teach them how to talk. You just gave them food, clothing, shelter so they could live, and they all grew up to be, let's say by the time they get to an age about 16, 17. You got 10 men, you got 10 women. Who's going to take the lead and take charge in how things go in that society amongst those 10 men and 10 women who were not socialized at all except being around each other? Nobody taught them any language. Who's going to take the lead? The men are going to take the lead. Why? Because the men are naturally stronger. The men have drive and ambition and testosterone. The men are able to dominate the women if they so choose to, or if they feel the need to. And the women are going to fall into their role and position as supporting the men without any socialization whatsoever. No teaching, no socialization. That's how it would work. Why? Because that is our natural essence. So yes, a woman could be taught to do anything that a man does generally, but is that her natural essence? The answer is no. Holy Shirt says, people don't want to hear your garbage is why they don't want you to speak. I disagree with that. I think the reality of the situation here today goes against that. But I'm reading it out loud, so I don't mind somebody pushing back. If you have some substance, that wasn't substance though, so no more of that. Mandy says, if you're not working 80 hours a week and sleeping 3 hours a night, you're not a real man. All right, sarcasm. I get it. That's what we call the absurd absolute. Yasmin said, daughter could want to be a boss babe like her mom. That's fine. If she wants to, she's not going to attract the boss man. And if she does, it's not going to last. Boss man and boss woman together do not last. Somebody has to be in control. Now, you can project being a boss to the public, But is that how it's really going at home behind closed doors? So you look at somebody like Jay-Z and Beyonce, and you can say, well, they're both bosses. But behind closed doors, when the cameras go away, there is a boss in that relationship, and it ain't Beyonce. So she can be a boss to y'all on TV. Behind closed doors, Jay-Z's the boss in that family. They can't both be bosses. You cannot have two bosses in one relationship. That's impossible. You said this man hasn't stopped talking the whole time. Well, I'm doing a live stream. What the hell else am I supposed to do? Look at you. Yasmin said, I would think of toxic masculinity being more emotional abuse, domestic violence. Well, those don't necessarily make you toxic. That could just mean a man who's out of control. Toxic masculinity is more about the way someone thinks. Panda Bear said, I wish I could TikTok and let me type more. I got so many things to say about this. I understand you. I understand. I know you got a lot of things to say. I appreciate you having a lot of things to say. Put them in the comments, but you got to be more, you got to use brevity. You got to get your point across with fewer words, which is hard to do. Nicole said, on the net, I see women ask men their point of view, then women get mad because other women respond. Yeah, that happens on both sides. A man will ask a question of a woman and men will jump into. That happens. Mandy said, women are qualified to speak on toxic masculinity. My guy, are you good? Well, that's the reason I'm using it. I'm glad that she did because I used it for content. Look, I got damn near 2 hours of content out of this. So I appreciate things that I disagree with. So you said women are qualified. So qualified is a very subjective term. I don't know. Everybody started throwing around this word qualified since last year. Ever since Kamala came around, people start throwing around this word qualified. So qualified is subjective. So if you think someone's qualified, I'm not arguing with you. And I'm glad that she did it, even though I disagree with it, because I just used it for my own purposes. So I'm glad when people do things that I disagree with, because then I get to use it for my own purposes. So I appreciate her writing this article. Now, if you, Manny, assuming that you're a man, maybe you're a man, Manny, assuming you're a male, let me ask you a question. If you needed to learn the essence of masculinity and the essence of being a man, would you rather learn it from a female or from a male? I'm guessing you would probably want to learn that from a man. So it doesn't mean a woman can't talk about it, but I'm guessing you would probably want to learn it from a man. I would, but we don't have to agree. Let's see. I lost my spot in the comments here. I'm trying to make sure I see all you all's comments. I'm not going to read every comment, but I'm trying to make sure I see them. AC sells everything. Agree with everything you're saying, but you should give real definitions of toxic masculinity. Well, if you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different definitions. So what's the real definition? The definition I read at the beginning of this live stream, A says sells everything. I actually read it out loud at the beginning of this live. Let me read it again, just in case any of you didn't hear me do that. Any of you who's not familiar with my work, this is your first time hearing me. When I talk about a subject that might be a hot button issue, especially some type of phrasing, I always give you a definition so you know the frame that I'm using. You may not agree with the definition that I use, but this is the definition, according to Very Well Mine. I also said that at the beginning of my live. And again, you go to 10 different websites, you're going to get 10 different definitions. So this is the one that they used. Quote, toxic masculinity refers to a collection of offensive, harmful beliefs, tendencies, and behaviors rooted in traditional male roles, but taken to an extreme. This dangerous idea of, open quote, manliness, close quote, perpetuates domination, homophobia, and aggression and can be harmful to the mental health of all genders. It also can have serious social consequences, which is how it became known as toxic masculinity. All right, that's their definition. My live, what I just did here today, is based on that frame. Now, if you have a different frame, then it would be a different conversation. But this is my live, and that's the frame that I use. Easy Sam said, based on your thinking, can you fully ever truck a woman? What do you mean by truck? You're using slang that I'm not familiar with. Nicole said, whole point is to get a man perspective on it because a woman can't answer from a man view and vice versa. Exactly. But if I want to talk about something that is completely masculine, like toxic masculinity, I'd rather talk to men about it. I don't want to hear a woman talking about it. But again, as I just said, I'm glad when a woman does because I can use her mistakes as my fodder for content. Chris says, this is one of those Christian men meetings. Well, I do not identify as Christian, so I don't think so. I don't think so. Why So Serious said, this is weird to think that only men are qualified to provide or be head of household. I didn't say that. Strong man argument. Yasmin says, just because you're married doesn't mean you can't be an independent woman. What does that even mean, Yasmin? How can you be an independent woman when you're married? What is that? I don't even understand what you mean by that phrase. What's your definition of independent woman? Well, you're asking me a loaded question here, Yasmin. That's not the subject here today. We're talking about toxic masculinity, and you're shifting the conversation and talking about independent women. I can't even respond to that. Al to Glean said, we need to see more men like you. Well, thank you. Chris says, some chick broke this man's heart. Now, where are you getting it from? What did I say? Man, he said, this dude makes up his own definitions and rules. Well, I do make up my own rules. I don't make up my own definitions. I am a staunch advocate of the dictionary. I got a whole episode of my podcast talking about why the dictionary still matters. Why so? Said, I agree with some of your points, but but trying to say this is kind of wild to me. Well, that's fine. But I'm the one on the camera. So what I say is what I say, and what you say, you had to say on your live. That's just the way that it goes. Yasmin said, desire him because I got to know him and he was ambitious. In turn, he could provide security. All right, great. EV said, what is considered average man? I don't know. That's not the topic here today. Today we're talking about toxic masculinity. So sometimes when I get to these topics, sometimes people are disagreeing. So ask me questions about things that I may have mentioned or touched on, but I'm not going to go into a whole back and forth on these random things that are tangential to the main topic. So some of you guys' questions I'm not going to address because it's taking me off the main topic. Evie says, can you be average and valuable to your family? Absolutely. Absolutely. There are many men out there who are generally average. Let's say they're average in income, or they're average in, let's say, status, or they could be even average in ambition. And they are still valuable to their families because they have a woman who appreciates that and she's okay with that. And they take care of their kids and they take care of their home. There's nothing wrong with that. Most people are average. By definition, most people are average. So there's nothing wrong with being average because that applies to damn near everybody. Chris says, what traits should I look for in men when finding a circle of men to surround myself with? Well, first of all, you want to look for men who have and are representing what you want to be. You can start with just that. So if you want to get better at making money, get around some people who make money. You want to get better at talking, get around some men who are good speakers. You want to dress better, get around some men who dress well. So whatever it is you're looking for, get around men who are already projecting that that's who they are. And they usually have other men. You usually connect to that man, you find other men. That's the way it works. Nick says, Nick Cannon got like 15 kids. Yeah, he got something like that. Again, I wouldn't do what Nick Cannon does. What I'm giving him credit for is that he has verbalized what I was saying, was that a lot of men believe that monogamy is not necessarily for everybody. And there is a strong basis to that perspective, which is back in the days, a man of status could go around and have a bunch of kids with a bunch of different women, and this was normal and it was accepted. Now, in today's world, it is not as normal. It is not as accepted, but it doesn't mean that people don't still believe it and people don't still do it. Nick Cannon is a person who, I guess we can say he has status because he's known, he's relatively famous, and allegedly has financial resources. So he does that. Now, what I don't agree with is that, as opposed to back in the day, and especially here today, that being able to have a bunch of kids is not about how much money you have, it's about your presence. The most important thing a man provides for children is his physical presence, not his money. So if you have kids by 3 different women, you can't give full presence to any of those kids because you can't split yourself 3 different ways. So that part I disagree with him when it comes to Nick Cannon and others who are like him. That I do not agree with. But I understand Nick Cannon could probably defend his position. If I was having a conversation with him, he probably could defend his position in his way. We would disagree on that. There's nothing he could say that's going to change my mind on it. O-Dog said, there were never any caveman days. This is the white man propaganda. I was playing off for real about the caveman thing. So we never lived in caves. All right, fine. Fair enough. I'm using it as a metaphor, but I get what you're saying, O-Dog. Ray said, my ex's mom had the option to quit and stay at home, and she didn't. I think she liked bossing people around at her job. I understand that. I can see that. Yeah, if you got a job that you like, you might not do it. Oresta said it is chemical. Ray said, just because you're married doesn't mean you can't be independent. Yeah, I don't know what that meant. I'm waiting for Yasmin to, when I get through the comments, maybe she'll have explained what that means. But if a woman's walking around calling herself independent, I'm assuming she's single. But you're married, calling yourself an independent woman, I want to know how your husband feels about that. Aresta says, not gonna lie, this live stream is a patient trainer. I don't know what that means. Chris said, how can I surround myself with solid and help me grow? How would it not? What do you consider to be growth? Chris, let me ask you a question. Kevin said, I hate this talking point because as humans, almost nothing we do is natural. Yes, it is. You want to see a human doing something naturally, watch a 6-month-old baby. Everything they're doing is natural because you can't teach them for the most part. We learn to do things that are not natural. But generally, most of the things that we're born to do are natural. I have a 2-year-old is doing things that are natural. We condition them to stop responding to their own instincts. They're taught that. Ryan said, maybe women should evaluate men based on childcare, cooking skills rather than provider skills. Yeah, okay. If you want a woman, then go ahead. Start evaluating them based on that. And see if you can find yourself a high value man who is interested in your measuring stick. Kevin said, living in houses and having cars isn't natural, but we draw the line at monogamy. I think having shelter is natural. Shelter is natural, whatever kind of shelter we're talking. Double Beats Boy said it doesn't apply to average man, only high earners. Well, high value. Making a whole lot of money doesn't necessarily make you high value. There are rappers who make a whole lot of money, allegedly, and the women that they end up dealing with and the situations they appear to end up in do not reflect high value. High value means you have to be looked at by other high value people as valuable and you are useful to the group in general. So high earning is only one piece of it. Eve Green, we're talking about toxic masculinity, quote unquote toxic masculinity. That's what I know, said Michael J. White. Who is that? I don't know who that is. Professor Adam said monogamy is a great ideal to aspire to, facilitates an atmosphere for healthier homes for children. I think for children, it's a great idea, but I understand the counter argument of spreading your seed around because you have a certain status. I understand the counter argument. I don't generally agree with it in total, but I understand where it comes from and I understand why some people have it. That's what I know. So you don't need status, you need marketability. Well, marketability is part of status. You market your status. Reed said a single mom can make a good household if she is a high earner with flexible schedule. I disagree. No. A solid household is man, woman, child. I'm not saying a single mom can't do a good job. I'm not saying a solid child cannot come out of a single parent household. But if you're saying a good household is okay with a single mom, no. The ideal is man, woman, child. I believe that anyone who ends up as a single parent, that wasn't the plan. No, actually, that's wrong. Let me check that. Erase that from the record. I do believe there are some people who choose to be single parents. Like a woman will have a kid knowing she doesn't want to be with the man because she wants to be a single mom because she feels she got the money, she could do it. The problem is, even though she may do a good job in her own eyes, the child is not getting what they need, which is man, woman, child. They need both. A well-rounded child needs both. They need masculine influence. They need feminine influence. They need it from their biological parents. Now, it doesn't mean you cannot end up fine with a single parent. But is that the way it should be? I believe no. While at the same time, I understand, man, talking about spreading his seed. He ain't there every day, but he wants to do that. So, hey, it's not about right or wrong. Someone said, don't you think it's not healthy for young men to be with their girlfriend 7 days a week? Well, you could be with her, but you can't be with her all day. Eventually, you got to go out and do something. Reed said, you can't force a higher earning woman to be interested in an average man. Well, it's not about forcing anything. The woman wants what she wants. The man wants what he wants. And in the end, a man is judged based on his ability to provide. A woman is judged based on her fertility and her beauty. So the longer the game goes, the game starts to tilt in the favor of the man. Just in general, as a general point. Tasha said, both need their own time. Just because you're married doesn't mean you're with your spouse. Exactly. Correct. So yes, as long as I get a paycheck. Young men need to stop dating girls that want to know where the man's location is. I don't know about that one. I never heard of that. I mean, Gina. So yeah, I'm not doing that. Chris said, pandering to a bunch of other insecure men. What am I saying that would pander to an insecure man? I don't know. What did I say? Rashida said, you got a lot of weird people in here that cannot grasp what you're saying. That's okay. Welcome to the internet. All right, this is normal. This is normal behavior on the internet. Let's see. At A-Town LLC 23. Appreciate it. Tasha said, a woman with a 12-year-old not at home, like if they are 2 years old. I don't know what you mean. What do you mean by that? Tasha said, 5-year-old in school all day. What's woman doing all day? Well, it depends on what we're talking about, like a stay at home. If you're staying at home, then you don't have to send the kid to school. If you don't want to, homeschool your kid, and they don't need 8 hours. Different conversation. I'm not diving into that rabbit hole today, but you don't need 8 hours to school a kid. They make it 8 hours because it's basically an extension of daycare. That is correct way the man should lead. Yes, the man is supposed to lead. I lost my spot again. Thank you, McNeely T. Appreciate that. What traits should you look for in men I should aspire to surround myself with? Again, same thing I said to Chris. What type of man do you want to become? That's the first question you should ask yourself, and then go find men who are already living like that, and those are the people you want to be around. Yufamu said, how about learning it from both men and learning what? Let's say Dr. Bob said, how do you not understand what? This live is on YouTube right now, Chief. I'm live on Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. I'm live in 7 places right now. I'm just looking at the TikTok comments because that's where the majority of the comments are. But I'm live in 7 different streams right now with 3 different cameras. So yes, this is on YouTube. And oh, by the way, those of y'all who are watching me on TikTok, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The link is in my bio. Subscribe to my YouTube just in case anything happens to TikTok or to my account. Make sure you go to my YouTube. My YouTube is YouTube/@DreB, DRE, the letter B. Or just look at my name, Dre Baldwin. Tasha said, men have been leading this whole time. Where are we? Man has to be rightly guided or it falls. Where are we? We have a completely updated society that was built by men. What do you mean? Where are we in a positive way or a negative way? Men built the society we live in right now. These shelves you see behind me, this internet that we're using, the roads that you drive on, all of that is based in men. All of that is built by men, and it is protected by men, and it is upheld by men. So men have done a great job building society. Brandon Tessner, what's going on? Good morning. User said, a boss babe can have 6 baby daddies, multiple streams of passive income. Yeah, there's a lot of passive income, but I don't know if she's still a boss. What's she bossing with 6 babies and 6 baby daddies? She ain't bossing nothing. The only thing she bossing is the kitchen. Yasmin said, end conversation. I don't know what that was. User said, how many pronouns should a man have? 0. I don't have any pronouns. Chief said, a lot of these people have been brainwashed. That's why they think what you are saying is toxic. Yes, that's why we're having a conversation. Because I know a lot of people believe this stuff that I was reading about. Chris said, I say growth and confidence. And get around confident men, Chris. That's where you start. Ray said that person clearly wasn't the product of a single mother household. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. I usually go for about 2 hours. Today is Thursday. Tomorrow, what's the topic here tomorrow? Tomorrow I might talk about politics, why I would never be involved in politics. And I'll tell you all why I would not get in politics. Monday, I'm definitely doing Donald Trump round 2 because Monday is inauguration day for Donald Trump. If we got to go through VPN to get on TikTok, we'll see if they shut down TikTok access. But if we got to go through VPN, I will be here Monday. That'll be Trump. Tomorrow, I don't know the topic. Something might happen today that pushes that one back off the schedule. But 8 a.m. Eastern, if you're on TikTok, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. YouTube is over here. Shout out to everybody on YouTube who is watching. Subscribe to my YouTube channel because all these lives do go on YouTube. So if you missed part of this, you only came in at the end or at the middle or when I was taking questions, you missed the content. Make sure you go over to YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. All my lives will be on YouTube. They will also be on Rumble. I'm also on X @DreAllDay. My Instagram is @DreBaldwin. My Facebook is /WorkOnYourGameUniversity. I'm also on LinkedIn. Just look up my name, Dre Baldwin. I'm everywhere on the internet. Just Google me. I'm easy to find. You want to get my emails that come out every day, go to workonmygame.com. The emails are free. You want to work with me directly, have me as your coach, consultant, or trainer, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. We got a lot of stuff, as you can see. So just follow me on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, follow me on whatever app you're watching me on right now. I got to go to the bathroom. I've been sitting here for 2 hours talking to y'all. I drank a lot of water during my workout this morning or after my workout this morning. Y'all have a great Thursday. I'll see you tomorrow. Work on your game.